Good evening and welcome to the 2020 Flower Mound Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Cross Timbers Gazette. I'm Max Miller, publisher of the Cross Timbers Gazette. I'll be the moderator for this evening's forum. Bob Weir was unable to make it tonight, but he sends his regards, and he's probably watching right now, so I better do a good job. Paul Stone will be our timekeeper tonight. As a local newspaper serving southern Denton County for 41 years, the Cross Timbers Gazette is proud to provide this opportunity to the community to meet their town council candidates and hear their views on the issues facing the town. The Cross Timbers Gazette is Denton County's largest locally owned newspaper, mailed to 50,000 homes and businesses each month, including every mailbox in Flower Mound. You can also read the latest Southern Denton County news online anytime at www.crosstimbersgazette.com and on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Tonight's forum is being broadcast live as well as recorded by the town of Flower Mound and can be viewed on FM TV up to Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. FM TV is broadcast on Grande Channel 12, Time Warner Channel 16, and Frontier Channel 42. You can also watch this forum on demand at www.flower-mound.com. That's flower-mound.com. And also crosstimbersgazette.com, so you can watch this anytime on demand. Early voting begins on Monday, October 13th and ends on Friday, October 30th. Election Day is November 3rd. Early voting locations include the Community Activity Center, the Senior Center, Town Hall, the Denton County Southwest Courthouse, and the REC of Grapevine for Flower Mound residents located in Tarrant County, or any designated voting location in your county. On Election Day, voting is by precinct only for Flower Mound voters located in Denton County. Go to votedenton.com to look up your voting location. Tarrant County residents may vote at any of the vote center locations. For a full list of those locations, go to elections.tarrantcounty.com. For more information, contact the Town Secretary's office at 972-874-6070. I'd now like to introduce Lori Walker, President of the Flower Mound Chamber of Commerce, to say a few words.
Thank you, Max, very, very much. The Chamber has such a wonderful partnership with the Cross Timbers Gazette. Again, I'm Lori Walker, the President of the Flower Mound Chamber of Commerce, and I am here tonight on behalf of our 1,000 plus businesses in our community. Our community is one of the most special places. We're at a groundbreaking today, so business is wonderful in Flower Mound. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for stepping up and for making the decision that you would like to serve and serve unselfishly. That is so, so important. We're all very anxious to hear from you. We're all anxious to hear how you are going to make this town wonderful. It is wonderful and will continue to be wonderful. So thank you so much, Max. Thank you so much for putting this forum on, and I will not take any more time. Good evening.
Thank you. Before we meet our Flower Mound Town Council candidates, I'd like to introduce the two Denton County Commissioner Precinct 3 candidates and let them speak for 3 minutes each. In this race, Democrat Delia Parker Mims is challenging incumbent Republican Bobby Mitchell. Delia Parker Mims was unable to attend tonight's forum, but has submitted a video.
I'm Delia Parker Mims, and I'm the Democrat running for County Commissioner. I want to thank Max for giving me the opportunity to meet with voters. I also want to thank Commissioner Mitchell. The significance of your presence has not gone unnoticed to me. What people may not know is that throughout the years we've had opportunities to talk, and we've always expressed mutual admiration for one another. And certainly your ability to navigate through this political process in this area has opened doors for people like myself and other Black women leaders. And for that, I'm truly grateful. But we're in a crisis, and it's time to move beyond mere presence. It's time for gutsy leadership for a change. Commissioner Mitchell has been unchallenged for the past 20 years and has neglected Precinct 3. I could give you multiple examples from our mental health crisis, our seniors with housing insecurity, the school to prison pipeline, but there's nothing more paramount than the COVID response and the lack of leadership displayed. And there was plenty of opportunities for leadership. The commissioners could have issued a mask mandate. They could have helped to bring the curve down during this summer so that as we sent our children to school, we could do that and feel safe. They could have issued a mandate so that those of us who are essential workers could be safe in our work environments, but they didn't. Precinct 3, with a high number of disadvantaged families, high number of and underinsured families, needed Commissioner Mitchell to fight for them. But the commissioners instead pandered to their base and dropped the ball. I'll never do that. My only concern is that we all thrive together safely. I will make those decisions, make those calls that sometimes may seem unpopular so that we can all stay safe and we can move forward, because that's what leadership does. As an example, our county's indigent health care has the most stringent requirements, meaning that pre-COVID, 90% of people did not qualify. 90% of persons in indigency did not qualify. You literally had to make less than $3,600 a year to qualify for indigent health care. And that was pre-COVID. I promise you, if you elect me, I will change that, because health care is becoming a crisis in this area. Every day, families are losing their jobs and businesses are closing. In order for us to move together forward, we're all gonna have to have access to health care. We're only as healthy as our neighbor. As a lawyer, as a person trained in economics, I know how to seek out opportunities, and I've been trained to fight. I'm Delia Parker Mims. I'm the Democrat running for County Commissioner. I need your vote so I can fight for you.
Bobby Mitchell, you have 3 minutes.
That's okay, I'm gonna stand over here.
Take this moment while we're adjusting to tell you the Cross Timbers Gazette in the October issue has a candidate, meet the candidates in here. So you will see a lot of your local candidates here. Make sure you check your ballot all the way to the bottom, because we have a lot of local races. It's very important this year. Obviously, there's a big race at the top, but we want everybody to make sure that they know their local candidates. So get to know them in the Cross Timbers Gazette. Bobby?
Good evening. I want to thank my opponent, Ms. Mims, for those nice, kind words. And she's right. I have been your commissioner for the last 20 years. And I'm running for re-election to continue my work as a strong and vocal advocate for the citizens in Denton County, Precinct 3. I want to continue with the successes and progresses we've gained, addressing health care needs, transportation needs, taking care of our seniors, lowering our tax rates, and continue working to combat human trafficking. I want to continue to work to provide the necessary services to our citizens. I'm committed to the continued collaboration with Precinct 3 cities to maintain this positive momentum of innovative ideas for a better quality of life for our citizens. Let me go back and thank the town of Flower Mound for allowing us to be here. Max Miller, thank you for putting this forum on. Appreciate you. I'm running for re-election because we need to maintain positive momentum. I'm running for re-election because we need to continue the opportunity of prosperity, providing jobs for paychecks. I'm running for re-election for economic growth, rising standards of living, upward mobility, and achieving the American dream. Your Denton County Commissioners this year and last year, taking care of our seniors, we voted for a over 65 and a disability homestead ceiling for over 65 and disability citizens, exemption for all other Denton County residents, At the same time, we lowered your tax rate. We here in Denton County every year provide a legislative agenda, and last year on our legislative agenda, it was to provide a voting center, but it was killed in committee. I serve on the Denton County Homeless Leadership Team, a working group to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. We built a large health care building so our healthcare citizens could have a comfortable place to come and get service. You see, we don't just serve indigent people, but we serve thousands of uninsured and underinsured people in our primary clinic, along with our women and children. We have contracts with the hospitals in Denton County and around the area, so if you have a problem that we cannot fix here at Denton County, you can go to another hospital and Denton County will pay for it. I serve on the Denton County Behavioral Leadership Team, which advocates and facilitates for a collaborative, person-centered behavioral health center to repair and restore lives. Recognizing that people across Denton County have suffered during this COVID-19, I worked with MHMR to create the Operation Connecting Lives program using iPads to enable caseworkers to connect with their clients and with their loved ones. We implemented the open business grants, and we spent $35.1 million in opening up businesses for 1,385 small businesses. We provided 36 of our cities with an estimate $40 million to help pay for their COVID-related expenses. We provided 419,300 masks, 626,300 gloves, 1,780 gowns, and 5,535 hand sanitizers for our first responders and our long-term care facilities. We supported our nonprofits by providing $2.5 million. We supported our eviction protection program by providing $2 million for rental housing utilities, $422,000 for food to feed the homeless. We've worked to provide you increased service, not only during normal times, but especially during this great time of need. I not only serve locally, but I serve regionally. Please visit my website at votecommissionermitchell.com. Also, in addition to providing the needs that you have, I have a Precinct 3 task force where the counties, city, town, state, TxDOT meet every other month to evaluate the needs and the resources and the time frame to work on our roads. Right now, I'm working on Shady Shores Road that has been damaged by heavy rains and flooding. We have some of the other roads that we've worked on: I-35, 1171, 407, 2491, SH-121, Garden Ridge, all are part of Precinct 3 and was completed during my leadership.
Thank you, Bobby.
Oh. Okay.
Let's give our commissioner a hand. Thank you. One of the many races on the ballot near the bottom, so make sure you pay attention to those. I'd now like to welcome and introduce our Flower Mound Town Council candidates. Starting from our left here, David Johnson, and in place 2, and then incumbent Sandeep Sharma. In place 4, we have incumbent Claudia Forrest and Ann Martin. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. After the opening statements, I will ask the candidate questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question. Finally, there'll be 2 minutes for closing statements. A reminder to candidates, please turn off your cell phones so as to not cause interference with the sound system. And we will begin our 1 minute opening statements with David Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. I am David Johnson. I am a 25-year resident of the town of Flower Mound, and I've been involved in many facets of our town government and area nonprofits. I decided to run for town council for many reasons, but specifically, our current council is dysfunctional in many ways. Their disjointed decision-making, lack of strategic vision, and they've created a toxic environment with our town staff and our employees. As a new councilman, I would like to focus on 3 main initiatives. I pledge today to work with the residents of Flower Mound to put together a bond initiative to purchase and preserve our open spaces in town, if that is the people's will. I want the town of Flower Mound to be a place for everyone, to provide intergenerational options for housing, public amenities, services, and employment. And I would like to also have a regional coalition to work with our neighboring communities to benefit our residents of Flower Mound and Southern Denton County. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandeep Sharma, your 1 minute open.
Good evening. I'm Sandeep Sharma, running for re-election to Flower Mound Town Council Place 2. I want to start by thanking you for putting your trust in me and electing me in 2018 with your overwhelming support. In these 2.5 years, I've made tough decisions, staying true to my principles and promises. I'm going to start with, I am committed to honoring the master plan. I voted to conserve Cross Timbers areas, protect Denton Creek area and other zones within the town. Just prior to getting on the council, I actively opposed the 600 or so apartments that you see near Home Depot that the prior council had approved. I voted down a proposal for 850 apartments next to it, which would otherwise have been there. I voted to push back high density. I've in 2018 worked towards getting us a property tax rate reduction and then also a 2.5% homestead. And cutting expenses during the budgeting session. So a lot of things that I've done, and I continue to do that with your support.
Thank you, Sandeep Sharma. Claudia Forrest, your 1 minute open.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Claudia Forrest. I've been on town council for 3 years. I served the full term. And I think over the years, personally, my function has been to try to find solutions to problems. And you can only do that by engaging people that are coming in front of us as council and wanting to develop their property or do things that they need to do. One of the key components of being a councilman is having an open mind and talking to people and trying to find solutions that are wins for them and wins for us as a town. So I think I've proven myself. I certainly would hope that you'd like to vote for me again and continue that service. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Martin, your opening statement.
I'm Ann Martin, and I'm running for Flower Mound Town Council. Place 5. Can I start over? I'm Ann Martin. I'm running for Flower Mound Town Council, Place 5. Thank you, Cross Timbers Gazette and Max, for hosting tonight's forum. My husband and I knew we'd be moving to Flower Mound in 1997, and we quickly realized Flower Mound was perfect. We were close to every amenity, in the Metroplex, but we still felt like we lived in the country. It was the best of both worlds. Fast forward to 2020, and I've seen and experienced so many changes in town. You've seen it. Clear cutting and removal of protected and specimen trees, greatly increased traffic and delays, and market increases in our residential property tax bills. Enough is enough. If we want to preserve and protect what remains of the town that we've grown to love, it's time for a new vision and a new voice in Place 5. I hope tonight you'll see why preserving the master plan, protecting trees, and working to lower tax rates is the right vision and the right path to the right future. Flower Mound is just too important to settle for anything less. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin a question and answer format. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question and will be limited to 1 minute to answer the question. Questions will be asked in rotating order. Last week, I asked each candidate to submit a question they would like me to ask tonight. I will be asking those questions along with questions submitted by the Cross Timbers Gazette readers. And I got a whole bunch of them here. We'll probably not have time for all of them, but I'm looking forward to it. I think there's some good ones. So we're going to start with David Johnson. And the first question is, what is the most urgent problem facing Flower Mound today, and what is the first step you will take to solve it if elected?
The most urgent problem facing Flower Mound today, honestly, is I believe the dysfunctional relationship that council has with staff. It includes the departure of our greatly loved town manager, and our town CFO is getting ready to retire next year. It's very key that the biggest crisis that we find a new town manager that can continue the legacy of Jimmy Stefados, continue the teamwork and effort that he left his legacy is regarding great staff. We've got great leaders, our police chief, our fire chief, are great people, and they've done a lot to help with morale of our employees and many other items here in town. So finding a new town manager is our biggest issue right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandeep, same question.
Thank you, Max. I think the biggest issue continues to be how the town is developing. One of the things that every resident talks about is the traffic, especially during the rush hours. How do we kind of manage that? If we can't stop it, we got to at least manage that. So I think they all kind of tie together when we talk about what the town was, town's vision was, the mission statement was, but specifically about the density in the right places, in the wrong places, and the right, in the appropriate. So, to that respect, to mitigate traffic, my approach is to make sure the density is kind of under control. To manage the traffic, what I've done and continue to do is the intersections that are heavily trafficked. I've been able to kind of add that on the CIP, especially the 1171 and 3040, where we can add a couple of turn lanes in different directions to have the traffic move smoothly and faster. And for the next couple of years, that's what's going to be my priority as traffic management.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest.
All right. What I see as one of the biggest issues is development, is how we manage what's coming. And I'm a firm believer that as a town, we need to have people on council that are willing to sit down with developers, talk it over, talk it through, and negotiate what we want, what we think we need. It's not only allowing them to build what they want, it's also trying to get amenities for our people that we need. Parks, another CAC out west. Things of that nature are important, and you can't get those things from developers when you absolutely say no to everything and want to stifle their development. We have to be able to negotiate somehow.
Thank you. Ann Martin, same question.
I think the most urgent problem facing Flower Mound today is something that is the root of many other problems, and that is erosion, decision by decision, of our master plan. This is the root cause of increased density, this is the root cause of increased traffic, and it's the root cause of destruction of trees. So I think if we look at the root cause, we should try to maintain, the way to solve that is try to maintain the integrity of the master plan, decision by decision, and of course being unbiased when someone does bring a request for development to the town council. But I think we still need to understand the value of the master plan and how it helps us preserve and protect the beauty of our beautiful town.
Thank you. Our next question is, does Flower Mound need more apartments? Why or why not? And this time we'll start with Sandeep Sharma.
Yeah, thanks for starting with me on this question. So over the years, we actually have had a lot of apartments that have been approved. So right now, if you look at it, we have about 4,500 apartment units either approved, built, or in the pipeline. The problem is that not only that, like in the last couple of years, a proposal came for about 850 plus apartments. I was able to be opposed to that, looked at it, and denied it. But the problem is that it doesn't stop there. The work doesn't stop. I think we have enough, we have more than enough, but it's going to keep coming. So we need somebody on the council who can look at that, be there for the people, and be the voice of the people, because a lot of people, they like Flower Mound for the reason they came here, right? They came here for the unique country atmosphere, and we'll talk about the other tenets later on. Thanks.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, same question.
I'm not sure that it's a question of whether we need more or we have enough. I think every development has to be looked at carefully, and there is a mix. If you want to bring quality development, every single developer will tell you that there has to be density enough and enough people there to serve those businesses and restaurants that we want to bring. So I think apartments are a piece of the pie. I think they offer an entry level to citizens that want to come here. Not everybody can afford a 10% down payment on a $800,000 house or $600,000 house. People just don't have that kind of money. So I think apartments are a piece of it. We just need to control how many we actually put in and have it make sense with the development we want to bring.
Thank you. Ann Martin?
Yes, I'm going to say, turn on my mic. At this juncture, Flower Mound does not need more apartments. As Sandeep mentioned, there are thousands of apartments that have either recently been built and or are planned for development in the coming months, years, just down the pike. I would say there are some homes available in Flower Mound that do not cost $800,000. I live in one of them. And we were able to get a starter home when we first came here. I think that's still a possibility for many people. I think if we have too many apartments and increased density, it leads to traffic problems. For instance, if you look at the Point and you look at the apartments near Home Depot, there's a bottleneck at the southern part of Giroux where it enters into $24.99. How will we account for that? I don't think we need to add to that problem and increase our traffic woes anymore.
Thank you. David Johnson, same question.
State the question again, just to be sure I'm on point.
Does Flower Mound need more apartments? Why or why not?
Well, I really don't know that it's a matter of need. I think it has to do with a lot of various things that are going on around us. The community needs to continue to expand. We need to enlarge our tax base. And we need to also provide intergenerational solutions for housing here in Flower Mound. All of us are aging. I'm one of them. I think I've aged over a year in this last election cycle since I've been running for over a year. We need to be open to variety. We need to be open to a variety of people to come to Flower Mound. We currently have 3,700 apartments. We have 1,000 more that are being built. 600 of those, however, are senior apartments, which the town actually incentivized through a plan, through discounting fees. Apartment dwellers in Flower Mound are paying between $1,200 and $2,000 a month, which is more than most house payments. They also have more disposable income. They generally have younger families and are helping with our declining elementary school enrollment. And they likely will buy a home here in Flower Mound someday. We need to talk about apartments. Thank you.
Thank you, David Johnson. Our third question tonight, and we're going to start this question. Claudia will be our first question answerer. What is your interpretation of the town's master plan? For example, should it be set in stone, or is it a living document subject to changing with the times?
Okay. Our master plan's about 20 years old, maybe a little more. It was set and it was considered by the council at the time and the mayor, and it worked generally pretty well. But that same council and that same mayor, a year later, did a master plan amendment to allow Robertson Creek. So we got a Target, a Lowe's, 2 years later, they did a master plan amendment for the Home Depot. So a master plan is a guide. It should only be a guide to how you want the town to develop. So the way our master plan was initiated, it was initiated to allow master plan amendments to be considered. A lot of towns every 5 years change their master plan. We have not. We've been allowing it to flow and change based on the need of the town. And I think that's the way to approach it. It's not set in stone.
Thank you. Ann Martin, same question.
Well, the master plan is not set in stone. I think it should stand with very few changes, only really for something that is necessary in the town. We have changed the master plan. It's been changed many, many times. In fact, my opponent voted in the high 90% to change it. I think when we come to Flower Mound, we have a promise of a community. And I know when we moved here, we were promised that the master plan would protect development in our town. It would prevent things that we didn't want to see in the town that we wanted to choose to live in. And so I think that's something that residents come to depend on. And it shouldn't be changed at the whim of a council every time you vote a new person in. It should be something that's dependable, something that's predictable, and is changed with very careful consideration when the time is right.
Thank you. David Johnson, same question.
Just for context. Repeat it, please.
What is your interpretation of the town's master plan? Example, should it be set in stone, or is it a living document subject to changing with the times?
The master plan should be a living document, subject to changing with the time. There are so many layers of the master plan that do control how a development comes together, do control traffic. There are many studies, many layers, many expenses that go into requesting a master plan amendment. For example, right now, we've got the LASD has 108 acres here in town. They've been trying to market them. Our current council has blocked them from being able to change the master plan amendment on the designation on some of that property, and they're holding up $224 million that the district would like to redistribute, including if that land was actually developed, it would generate $1 million a year in additional ad valorem tax for Flower Mound and $3 million for our school district. So there are specific situations where changing the master plan makes sense and it adds value to the community. But we have to have council members that are willing to listen to what the developers want, why it makes sense, and find the best value for our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandeep, same question.
Sure. So master plan, it can change. However, what guides it? And I'm going to go back to use the town's mission statement is what guides it, right? We want to maintain unique country atmosphere. We want to maintain our heritage. We want to maintain or better the quality of life. At the same time, cultivating a good economic environment. So when you kind of work within that framework, yes, the master plan, if it needs to have some amendments, that's okay. However, my opponent, Mr. Johnson, has 80% of the time on P&Z voted to recommend master plan amendments. And about 93% of the time voted to recommend rezoning. Now, that's excessive. And a lot of times that's for, again, increasing the density, residential, apartments. That's not part of the mission statement. That's not part of the vision. So if we want to change, it has to stay within that, what I mentioned. Now, another thing to kind of mention that is the economic development environment. Yes, if that is what the amendment to master plan, then it's okay. If it benefits the town, residents, infrastructure, that's okay.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start with Ann Martin. Do you consider it ethical to place a campaign contributor on a town board or commission?
It's an interesting question. I don't necessarily think it's unethical. I think if promises were made in the back room, then certainly that is very unethical. But I think, the laws in the state of Texas with the Open Meetings Act prevent that. I think there's transparency in the town, and I do not think that it's anything unethical just by the nature of having someone who's contributed to your campaign in the past, then step up and want to maybe follow your good example and serve the town. You can't always predict what one of your contributors will do in the future. And I don't think it should be held against them. If that were true, then none of us would be able to have many very good candidates, in town who've contributed, then serve later.
Same question, David Johnson.
I think it's very unethical. I think that there are plenty of people here in town who want to serve. I think there's plenty of ways to take citizens and bring them more engaged. In fact, at the last forum we had, there was a pretty harsh question about diversity on our boards and commissions. And I pledged to work with town staff to find ways to drive that message further into our community, find ways to hit pockets of our community that may feel disengaged, and bring them forward. So by the time you have a contributor who's that engaged in writing checks for candidates, we need to pass over those people, frankly, and we need to be looking for the other people in our town who need to be pulled up into our decision-making process. Thank you.
Same question, Sandeep Sharma.
Sure. I don't really connect the two together in the sense that one is not dependent on the other, or there's any reason to kind of think that way. In the past, we have had contributions from the residents, and that have been put on the different boards and commissions, Mr. Johnson being one of them. So, I mean, I think that's a mute question. This question shouldn't even be talked about. So the question that comes up is like, well, are you going to approve developments when a developer is having lunch with you, is friends with you, is taking you out, meeting with you, and, you're sitting at their table versus them sitting at your table? Now, those are the questions that you want to ask. That's more important, because that's a larger impact on the whole town's economic, its planning, its infrastructure, its the people over here. I think that's a more appropriate question.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, same question.
I'm not 100% sure that it's unethical or ethical. I look at it, if somebody donated a $50 bill to a candidate and that person ended up applying and was seated, I can't believe that a candidate would sell their soul for $50. I think when you're talking larger sums of money, bigger contributors, something over $500 or $1,000, maybe you can start talking about the ethical part of that, of seating somebody that gave you that much money. I would expect myself, if something happened and a donor of mine did that, I would exclude myself from that decision. That's the correct way of handling it, and let the other councilman decide whether to put someone on or not.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our next question is, what characteristic in a new town manager do you feel is most important as the town begins its search? What characteristic in a new town manager do you feel is most important? And we'll start with David Johnson.
Well, thank you for asking that question, because I also think it's the most important issue here in town right now. I feel we need to find a good-hearted leader, someone who's willing to build a team, build cohesion with our council, hopefully, and with our employees. I think that Jimmy's exit has left a big hole. Frankly, he's left a hole in the community, not just with us, with the town staff, but he was a very well-liked and active, he and his wife were very active in our community, and they're sorely missed. I think we need to find someone that has a lot of the characteristics that Jimmy has, but he's going to have tough skin, he or she is going to have a tough skin, because of the nature and the history that this town has had, mostly from our current council. But anybody can watch our town council meetings. They can see how caustic the atmosphere can be here, and they're going to have a tough skin. And I think we've got a long road ahead of us to try to find a talent that's willing to take on that position.
Thank you. Sandeep, same question.
I agree that the person would have to have a tough skin, especially if they're also dealing with P&Z. But the two things that I think are very important is not to beat the dead horse, but I would like the town manager to be very familiar with the master plan. Okay, I would also like the town manager to kind of have had experience in more balanced, in the sense that we're going to be seeing a lot of development happening on 377 and 1171. Want to have somebody who's had good public-private partnership experience, have had someone who's had experience in bringing corporate, commercial type of residents to the town. That's going to be important. I will not be looking for somebody who's got sole experience in bringing a lot of multifamily type of developments.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest.
I think the number one quality that I would look at for a new candidate is that they have to have the ability to lead a team, to gain the respect, and to promote the employees, to be a boss, but yet to be someone that listens to people, that can change on a dime and raise people up, give them the education they need, those type of things. They have to be a people person to continue the great work that our previous town manager did. They also need to, I think, have balanced experience on the type of developments that they have attracted in the past to where they used to work. I think we need to have somebody that can speak to the development community, that can bring the right developments that we want without having to argue about apartments and everything else. So,
Thank you. Ann Martin?
Well, it's very nice to have a good-hearted person or someone who's a good team leader and a people person. Those are qualities that are very difficult to judge without bias. They're very subjective. I would rather look for someone that has demonstrated prior experience with a track record of creating jobs, improving economic growth, successful management of the budget. These are all things that are more objective measures that can be judged without bias. And I know that these are successful qualities that indicate the likelihood of future success. So those are the kinds of things that I would want to look at, and hopefully I'll have the opportunity to do so when we choose our new town manager.
Thank you. Our next question is, what is the most requested amenity or service that you hear citizens wanting, and how would you make that happen? And we'll start with Sandeep.
Sure. The most that I hear all the time is definitely more parks that people keep asking for. The town is known for parks and trails, open spaces, which kind of further builds on that, people asking for that. Now, what that brings to the question is, do we have enough parks? Do we have enough open spaces? And I don't believe we do. Now, we do have a lot of them, but we haven't had many recently. Now, we have a lot of development that's going to be happening on the west side, so we need to specifically look at how we can build more parks there, have open spaces there, have other amenities that kind of go with that. Rec center, for example, and that's an area which becomes the most asked for, highly appreciated, and I think the best way that we can give back to the community.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, same question.
Well, what I hear most from people, they always ask, about our trail system and about our parks. And one of the things that I think the town needs to do a better job is to figure out how to connect the broken pieces of our trail. It's great to say we have 62 or 63 miles of trails, but how much of it is contiguous? I don't know that we have done a great job of trying to figure out how to develop those segments that are missing. So either we need to start putting away some money, do a bond election, or something to develop some funds and revenues that we can take care of those things. I think as we go through development, most of our new developments all require to have new parks and new trails. So those pieces can take care of themselves.
Thank you. Ann Martin?
So at the town council meetings that I've recently been to within the past couple of years, I see a lot of citizens coming forward asking for a performing arts center. They're asking for a tennis center. In fact, people did reach out to me and specifically talk about those things. So in my opinion, those are the two things that I have heard most recently. I do not believe we should have a bond election for those things. I do not believe we should fund them through a TERS. I think the citizens, particularly those who were interested in the tennis center, they came forward and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and raise some funds on their own as well. So I think we can get creative about it. We can stop waiving park fees of developers. We can stop making them get the get out of jail free card, make them pay their fair share, and find creative ways to move forward, even if it does take a little bit longer than our citizens would like. I think we should put those things on the table and discuss how we can fit them in the budget.
Thank you. David Johnson?
Well, I'll agree with everybody else that parks are important. But what I hear, though, is that they don't know how to pay for them. Mr. Sharma's been on council for 2 years and wants to talk about parks and trails, but it doesn't want development, doesn't want to change the master plan. Well, the town, where's it, and he cuts the budget. So where's the town money come for those types of things? These pieces all fit together. It's a big jigsaw puzzle. And you can't say no up front to various things and then expect other things to happen. They all have to happen together. Development brings parks. It brings traffic lights. Mr. Sharma wants to throw a jab at me for approving the point. Well, guess what? The point is going to impact fees are paying for the traffic improvement that he took out of the budget last year. So these are things that he should already know, being on council for 2 years. The impact fees are going to pay for the improvements at $24.99 and $30.40 that he took out of the budget last year. He talks about traffic, but takes out traffic lights. So these pieces just don't fit together.
Thank you. Our next question is, should Flower Mound acquire property to protect natural areas from future development? If so, how would you fund these acquisitions? And we'll start with Claudia Forrest.
Well, I'm not in favor of the town itself spending money out of our general fund or any other fund to acquire property and leave it vacant. If we were to do so, I'd firmly support going out with a bond referendum to the public and getting the votes. If the people of the town decide they want to do it and they buy into the costs and all that, I'm all for doing what the people want. If the citizens come back and vote it down and we don't do it, so be it. That's the voice as well. I'm in favor of saving as much of our natural resources as we can. I think it looks great. It's beautiful to drive down areas that you see open space. So I'm all for it, but I don't think the town should actually pay for it on its own. I think it needs to be a vote of the people.
Thank you. Ann Martin, same question.
So I think it's great to save our natural resources. I think if someone wanted to do that, they wouldn't approve 95% of the tree removal requests. I don't necessarily think that we should acquire property. We might be open to that. If a great opportunity presented itself, it would depend on the budget, it would depend on the location, the intended use. How to fund that, my gosh, isn't that the important question of this evening? I don't think I would want to have a bond referendum, although maybe that is a nice opportunity to give people an opportunity to weigh in. But I think really that the open spaces should come from the developers and the tenants we have set out in our master plan.
Thank you. David Johnson.
One more time with the question, Max.
Should Flower Mound acquire property to protect natural areas from future development? If so, how would you fund these acquisitions?
Well, I've been here for 25 years, and in fact, it was part of my opening statement, and you might hear it again in my closing statement, that this has been a long-time challenge for the town of Flower Mound. Frankly, there's been a lot of hand-wringing over how to get this done, but there's never been a plan, and it's time to move forward. If the voters truly want it, if the residents truly want it, then we put up and do an analysis so there's full disclosure to the public as far as what the costs are and how it would come about. And then we do put it to the vote, put a bond referendum to the vote, and if the voters support it, then we know that we've got clear direction to move forward and the will of the people has spoken. The school district does this all the time. They wanted to put a large multifunctional facility over in the east part of the district several years ago. And they put it in a separate line item so the voters could vote on it. The voters voted it down, and then the school board had clear direction as to how to move forward, that what were the priorities of the taxpayers. Instead of us just talking about it here on the dais, we need to help the residents be more informed about what this looks like, what it's going to take, and put it to a vote.
Thank you. Sandeep?
Sure. Yes, I am for open spaces, for parks. There are two ways that we already have that we can help pay for that. One is the fees that are charged, which when we had the point, we waived about millions of dollars of fees over there, which have been good to have. In the Cross Timbers area, the master plan says, right, 50% to be open spaces, or can be creative around that. That is a lot of land we can create. The one thing to kind of, good to hear Mr. Johnson supporting parks is kind of flip-flopping, because he had said that earlier that parks is the first thing he's going to cut. if the budget was kind of tight instead of being creative about it. So I like that everyone kind of wants to do that, and I firmly believe we have the ways to pay for that, and then be a little bit more creative around it.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, what would you specifically do to help bring the right development to our town in the near future? And what do you consider the right development? And we'll start with Ann Martin.
Well, I think the right development looks something like a mixed-use development. Of course, it always depends on the intended location and paying mind to the master plan and the zoning for those areas. I think it would be great to bring an employer, someone with high-paying, maybe high-tech jobs in math, technology, communications, something that would allow our residents not to have to travel outside of our boundaries to get to work. We hear a lot about live, work, play. I think it would be great to be able to recruit some high-dollar employers of that nature. I think it's also really good to think about the future of the amenities that people want. And how would I do that? I think our economic development department, Andrea Roy, has done a good job of getting out there, kind of hearing what's coming in the pipeline, and then maybe being first and foremost out there to give a proposal and promote our great town.
Thank you. David Johnson.
One more time with the question, Max. When I'm the last one, I need a little refresher. Thank you.
No worries. So the question is, what would you specifically do to help bring the right development to our town in the near future, and what do you consider the right development?
Well, I'm not sure there is such a thing as right development, because that assumes that a judgment's been made ahead of time as to what that development might be, such as we aren't changing the master plan, such as no apartments. We can't be making those prejudgments. We have to be open. We have to have a seat at the table. We have to see what comes to us, and then if it's not quite a good fit, then we take time sculpting it and molding it. We have a very good planning department. I've enjoyed working with them on planning and zoning. And there's a lot of input. There's a lot of processes we have to go through, traffic studies and impact fees. And they even look at trees, which is, by the way, approved by the ECC and not by planning and zoning as the recommendation. So as Mr. Sharma should know after 2 years on council. But there's a lot of different things that would make up a good development, but you have to have the doors open, you have to have a seat at the table, you have to be willing to talk to people. Otherwise, you never even know what's out there.
Thank you. Sandeep?
So the right development first starts with when the developers come to our table to talk. Unlike my opponent, where he wants to go to their table, he wants to we want to have a say, a big say. What consists of right development, in my opinion, is traffic that kind of flows the reverse way, versus all homes here and people leaving and coming in the evening. Good commercial development, classy office spaces, retail, restaurant. That's a good mix of right development. Where we can see that happen is, as I said earlier, is the 1171, 377, that corridor. We have good opportunity there. How do we bring it here is by working closely with the state, our economic development team. So all the major employers that want to move from state to state, they cannot contact the state to find opportunities. So we need to be more closely aligned.
Thank you. And Claudia Forrest.
Well, my opponent said kind of nothing with her development statement. You cannot bring quality development to any project unless the investors and the developers of that project feel that they can make it work. And in today's market, a mixed use has to have apartments of some sort, or condos, or higher density, to bring enough people that the restaurants, the retail, the office building are willing to put their money on the line and invest in that space. So without density, without people, there is no quality retail, there is no quality restaurants that are going to come and take a space on spec and just guess that somebody's going to come in the doors. They do a ton of market research, and that's what I hear from every single one that I've ever sat down and talked to, which, by the way, our council currently doesn't try to do that. Lots of our councilmen right now do not talk to the developers, do not see what they're saying. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next question is a little long, but I'm going to read it, and hopefully not too many times. But Article 2, Section 3 of the town charter states, quote, "The town shall have full right, power, and authority to exercise the power of eminent domain when necessary to carry out any of the powers conferred upon this charter or by the constitutional laws of the state of Texas," unquote. Under what circumstances should the power of eminent domain be exercised as the first parley between the town and a property owner? David, you get this one first.
Well, I doubt that eminent domain is ever the first parley with a landowner. I would like to think that the town has sophisticated enough negotiating skills to have at least approached the landowner about what they need. So if it is only the first parley, then frankly I'm disappointed, because I would have thought better of our town staff to at least have approached the landowner about what they need. So I guess my answer is no, it's not the best parley. But when you get down into the weeds and it's something that the general good of the town is needed, or if there is someone digging in their heels or wants to take gross advantage of the opportunity to sell a sliver and take the town to the cleaners for whatever reason, then we need to flex our muscle. They need people who want to dig in their heels and not negotiate need to be informed that we do have eminent domain rights. Now, you ever want it to get ugly? No. You hope that people come to their senses and proper negotiations can happen at the time. But the reality of it is a tool that needs to be used when necessary.
Thank you. Same question, Sandeep Sharma.
Sure, similar answer in the sense that no, I do not approve of eminent domain against the residents of Flower Mound. That's my first stance. Now, having said that, right, again, and not as a first parley, ever. Yes, we gotta negotiate. Negotiating is not one time done, two time. It has to be done few times. And if nothing is working, if absolutely nothing's working, and we have to move, there's the kind of thing. We have to move for the betterment of the town, the residents, the traffic, the quality. Then we may have to do that. But if it's not necessary, it's possible that if that plan doesn't have to be implemented, maybe that we change the plan. But no, I do not approve that. And if it were to happen, only at the very last, when the town is being threatened, the residents are losing out, and the infrastructure is suffering.
Claudia Forrest, same question.
Eminent domain is a tool, and a community and community leaders should never use that tool as a first approach. It's wrong. I think we as a society, people in town, are generally good-hearted, and you can generally negotiate with people to do the right thing. There are, of course, those that will take advantage, that just will not play ball, that want exorbitant amounts of money for a small piece of property that sometimes is already encumbered with roadway or sewers under it or overhead wires that they can't use anyways, but they want tons of money. Well, that's the only time I can support using eminent domain, is going after those that are unreasonable to negotiate.
Thank you. Same question, Ann Martin.
Eminent domain should be used on very rare occasion, only after all means of negotiating has been exhausted. My opponent recently did come out of a closed session and made a motion to take property on Rippey Road by eminent domain. And I did talk to a few residents who were caught off guard. indicating to me perhaps this was not negotiated prior. They really didn't know what was happening. I believe residents should not have to hire attorneys in order to get a fair deal from the town. And that has happened more than once here in this town, and once was related to this motion that my opponent made. So, you know, it is serious. There may be times when we do need to have a piece of property for, as Mr. Sharma said, the betterment of the town. But I really think eminent domain should be the last resort if all other negotiations fail.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Sandeep. Do you feel it's important to communicate with town staff prior to open meetings where a better understanding of agenda items can be brought to each council meeting? Please explain how you feel this could be best achieved.
Yes, there is communication. Now, the communication is restricted, or is kind of it's not in deep diving stage. The reason is we have a process. We are not a private entity. We don't make decisions in the back, smoke-filled rooms. There is a process that the staff goes through. If relevant, they do discuss. They can discuss with the council. But the process being, you have to do it publicly. It has to be transparent. People have to come, listen to, hear that, speak about it. That what they speak about has to be taken in and then implemented. So there is a process. It's a public entity and an open entity. So those things have to happen. Now the question is, should we talk? We should, but not make backroom deals, but keep it more public, open, ask questions that everyone kind of knows, hears that, gets the answer, make decisions accordingly.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, same question.
Ask, but can you repeat it? Because I think I lost the first part.
No problem. Do you feel it's important to communicate with town staff prior to open meetings where a better understanding of agenda items can be brought to each council meeting? Please explain how you feel this could be best achieved.
Okay. If I get the question right, as a councilman, I feel obliged when I don't know the answer to something or I need clarification before I sit up here and make a decision. I do communicate with staff. I send them emails. Sometimes I'll call, sometimes I'll stop by and stand at their desk and ask a question. Am I getting this right, or am I understanding this correctly? And the communication is open both ways, and I feel that it's fine to do that as councilman, and you need to do that as a councilman. It's something that everyone should do, and as long as I don't ask those questions of my peer, then it's still acceptable to the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. Ann Martin.
The town charter prescribes the process for interaction between the town council and staff members. And if I'm not mistaken, it's really supposed to go through the town manager, and that's been something that we have been following for quite some time. If there are questions about an agenda item or someone wants more information, there are a lot of other ways to research issues. And I think, if you're going to go through the town manager, which is the prescribed process, you could do so with ample notice. You could be prepared. I think it is important to ask questions, but I think it's important to do it in the right way in the interest of transparency and integrity and following through according to the rules of our charter.
Thank you. David Johnson.
Absolutely. You should be willing to talk. You should have studied your packet. You should have done your research, maybe even watched a planning and zoning meeting beforehand if it's a planning and zoning item. You should run your questions through the town manager to follow protocol. But there is no reason why councilmen should be up here asking questions that are abstract or judgmental or condescending to staff. All of that needs to be washed out before the meeting in the back room. They're entitled to their opinion. I'm not saying they don't have a right to speak. But the reality of it is there's a level of professionalism, a level of preparedness, and there's also a reason to have an effective meeting, to keep the residents that are here watching the meeting, to keep the agenda moving, not dragging things out with that, proving the fact that there's been poor research or poor misunderstanding or even poor communication with staff. So absolutely, our councilmen need to be informed about the packet, need to have done their research, need to route their questions through the town manager. and have their answers ahead of time for the most part.
Thank you. Next question is, what do you feel is the top transportation priority in Flower Mound, and how would you fund that? And we'll start with Claudia Forrest.
Well, I think one of the biggest priorities regarding traffic, there's actually two that I personally feel are important. One is, how do we bring in new technologies to town to control our traffic lights, to sync them up, to make traffic flow much better than it does currently. That's one thing that I think the town needs to address. And, you know, depending on what the costs are, I think those can be phased in, if I'm not mistaken, certain areas of town first, second, third, and put them into the CIP and try to figure out how to pay for them. The second thing with traffic I think is important, and we've started already and addressed intersections, DXL lanes, acceleration lanes that are too short, that can be extended, that can be added to certain corners, that would help get traffic off the main road and turn into where they're going. So I think those need to be looked at both to improve our traffic situation.
Thank you. Ann Martin, same question.
So that technology is called adaptive signal technology. Many of our sister cities and the peer cities in the area are experimenting with it. Our transportation department is familiar with it, and they have indicated that they're a little bit on the fence right now. The technology is promising, but they want to make sure that you get the most bang for your buck. I think that another thing is what you don't do for traffic. I know we have instituted or built a number of roundabouts. I've heard mixed reviews from those from residents. Some people really do not like those, and they feel that for the expense of it, it is not a good ROI. So I think another way to pay for traffic improvements is ensuring that developers are paying their fair share of impact fees. And we need to ensure that we update our studies, and also, again, make sure that we don't increase density to outpace our infrastructure.
Thank you. David Johnson, top transportation priority, and how would you pay for it?
Well, first of all, I, as a councilman, would approve traffic signals that have been warranted, that have been proven by staff. 2 years now in a row, our current council has delayed traffic signals. They've delayed turn lanes. They've delayed intersection improvements at Garden Ridge and Forest Vista. These are basic things. The studies have already been done. The engineers have proven them. But for whatever reason, they keep delaying things. And it just makes no sense to me. And then taxes get cut. Well, how do you pay for it? There's other thing that's interesting is we have changing trends. More people are working from home. I think most people listening tonight have probably been working from home for the last 6 or 9 months, like I have. So our traffic patterns might actually be changing. So there's a lot of moving pieces with what this needs to look like. And how to pay for it? Well, because I'm in favor of smart development, of intelligent growth, there will be impact fees. But there's state funding. Our wonderful Commissioner, Bobby Mitchell, has county funds for us. But we need to be collaborative. We need to be willing to work with people, and we need to keep a seat at. It is our table. I said a table.
Thank you.
Their table or our table. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandeep?
Sure. So we, as a town, are already taking care of a few things. We have traffic syncing technology being put in place, one by one. We are looking at adaptive traffic signal device management technology. We need to have more smart city type of approach where we create a network where the devices, things can talk to each other and make it more seamless. The traffic signals, we spend money on those signals that we need, that are beneficial. If the traffic studies say that the traffic's not there, we don't waste our money there. That's why in the current budget session, we took our 2 signals because they were the least useful. The traffic had dropped down. It was benefiting different cities, not our city. So that's the kind of key thing for us, to kind of put the money where we need it. Cutting taxes, yes, I was for cutting taxes. And that is one of the reasons my opponent, decided to run, because he didn't like me cutting taxes or cutting budgets.
Thank you. Well, the evening has flown by. We're going to ask one more question. We'll start with Ann Martin, and our final question tonight is, who do you feel is the most important stakeholder in town, and how will they benefit from your leadership?
That's an easy question. I wholeheartedly believe the most important stakeholder is the resident. We have to ensure that what we're doing in our town meets their needs, exceeds their expectation, and sets them up to be able to live here in a town that they will grow to love for many, many years into the future.
Thank you, David Johnson.
Obviously, it's the residents. They're the ones that are paying taxes, and ultimately we kind of work for them, even though it's a volunteer job. But that's a multifaceted answer. We have a diverse amount of residents here, and they have different needs. And there's got to be a broad mind of how to pay for those needs, how to respect those needs. And honestly, I think there's a certain amount of education that needs to go on. We talk about traffic, we talk about all these other things, but there's a whole science behind how that happens and how that comes together. And the reason I am running for town council is because of the way the 2019 budget cycle was happened, because we alienated our staff, because we had a room full of maroon shirts, because benefits and pay was getting cut, and our highly valued fire department and police department felt their jobs and their compensation were in jeopardy, and it needed to be stopped. And fortunately, there was some compromise done, but it takes that amount of outspokenness to make it happen.
Thank you. Sandeep, same question.
Thank you. Yes, I believe residents are the most important stakeholders, not to minimize the other stakeholders, being the staff, being the small businesses, and the visitors to the town. And what do the residents want? So that's what the whole thing kind of revolves around. Residents want to align themselves with our mission statement. You talk to any resident. I've had like 4 residents call me today because they want to go to vote, early voting next week, and they're asking me questions. And all 4 today were agreeable that, yes, the quality of life is suffering. We want that. We want to maintain our country atmosphere. Yes, we want to do that. We want to preserve our heritage. Yes. And of course, we want to kind of balance our tax base and have commercial taxes coming in addition to residents. So everything that I've done is definitely aligned with that.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, same question.
Well, it's obvious, it's the residents that are what drives or should drive the council to do what it does. And when you listen to the residents, and speaking to Mr. Sharma's point, I had 3 calls yesterday from different citizens that wanted to know what I thought about things before tonight because they couldn't watch. And all 3 of those citizens that called me are concerned about, how are we gonna develop out west? What's gonna happen with traffic? Those sort of questions. And after explaining to them that 2499 is designed as a 100,000, 110,000 car highway. Right now it's doing 60. So there is room for expansion. We just need to fix the things that we can fix, the lights, the XL, DXL lanes, those type of things to keep people moving faster. So.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes our questions. We will now conclude our forum with closing statements. We're going to start over on this side. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statement. We'll begin with Ann Martin.
Thank you. Tonight you've had the opportunity to hear candidates answer questions about how they will improve Flower Mound, really scratching the surface of many issues that impact our quality of life and the future of our town. As I've stated here on social media and in other public forums, I believe the most pivotal issues impacting our future surround how we handle the future master plan amendments, tree removal permit requests, and fiscally conservative budget working toward lowering residential tax rates. The vast area of land in our western boundary represents our next frontier, and should be envisioned with great care and strategic consideration. Do you want to develop there in a rush to market scenario and end up with 5,000 more apartments? Or do you want something that looks more like campus commercial, maybe a corporate headquarters that brings high paying jobs, upscale residential and quality of life amenities like parks, open spaces, and recreational areas? When you compare my candidacy to that of the incumbent, there are some similarities. We both have been in town a similar amount of time. We've had similar community volunteer roles, and I think we're both pretty friendly and respectful people. But my opponent does have one thing that I do not have, and that is a voting record. In his time in local politics, both on P&Z and in council, up until February of this year when I announced my candidacy, he voted to amend the master plan 93% of the time. He voted in favor of rezoning 98% of the time, and he voted in favor of tree removal requests 95% of the time. This is not maintaining our town's high standards. This is not responsible growth and well-planned development. And waiving park fees and promoting the use of a TERS in Lakeside, which thankfully was defeated, is not fiscally conservative decision-making. Enough is enough, Flower Mound. You deserve better. If you agree, the choice is clear. Ann Martin for Place 5, Town Council. And my website is annfortowncouncil.com, and I'm on Facebook too. So I hope you will reach out and let me know what you want to see done. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Forrest, your closing statement.
All right. I've been doing this for 3 years, and yes, I have voted for master plan amendments, but let's be realistic. It takes 3 for sure, sometimes 4 councilmen to make a master plan amendment happen. So it's not that I voted for it, it's that the others also saw the need for the change. The master plan is a changeable document. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be corrected at time what you have in front of you. So I don't apologize for any of the votes I have made. I think every single vote has benefited the town and has been the right decision. So I look forward to serving another 3 years. That's as far as I can go, and I love the service to this town. And I think I bring a rational look at things. I'm able to pick apart projects and try to find a rational solution that everybody can live with. So, and I've done that on several projects that have come in front of us over the last 3 years. I don't think that we can go on and say this town is going to thrive if we don't allow development to come. It's how you develop that's important. And I think by starting off at a table with a developer saying no to every request, or at least to what they believe is important, you're not going to get the quality developments that you think you're going to get. You're not going to get somebody to take 1,000 acres and turn it into campus commercial. We've proven that on the south side of our town. That sat 20 years before somebody started developing it, and most of it is not developed as campus commercial. So we have to be careful, and we have to elect someone or people on this council that will do the right thing and bring the right things to town. So,
Thank you. Sandeep Sharma, your closing statement.
Thank you, Max. In my last 2.5 years, I listened to the residents and was a main proponent of their wants and needs inside the town hall and outside, especially on issues that have major impact on their quality of lives and values of their homes. However, work is not done. Based on my opponent's voting record and his statements, I would like to draw a comparison here. I definitely believe in the mission statement of our town. My opponent supports aggressive growth development. I believe in honoring the master plan. I oppose towers in town, whereas my opponent 80% of times he voted to amend the master plan, and 93% time rezoning, supports sewer in Cross Timbers. I voted on apartments, and Mr. Johnson has approved or recommended approval of about 1,800 apartments while on P&Z. I believe in holding the developers responsible, making it clear that it's our table, the town's table, that they're coming to discuss. Negotiation, yes, we'll do that, but we gotta be firm about it. My opponent clearly supports high density and believes in trusting the developers. I support our preserving our tree canopy. I voted to keep Morris Road 4 lanes. Mr. Johnson is a big supporter to widen Morris. I oppose high density and to control traffic, whereas Mr. Johnson supports public transport. Additionally, I think there's a lot of work to be done. The job is to make Riverwalk more successful, Lakeside successful. We gotta do that. If you didn't get all the answers today to your questions, please visit engageourtown.org. I hope I've earned your support and your vote to get reelected to the Flower Mound Town Council Place 2. Thank you.
Thank you. David Johnson, your closing statement.
Well, I hope you all have, tonight's given you an opportunity to gain insight about my knowledge, experience, and my heart for the town that my family and I have been called home for 25 years. I look forward to a new era where our town council will work and respect our town staff. An era where we can solve long-standing issues here in town. A time when we can work with our neighbors and benefit from the shared opportunities. As it often appears in my opponent, our longtime landowners, apartment residents, and even our town staff are not our enemies. They have a stake in this town too. Let's all work together to preserve the great quality of life we have, to focus on making Flower Mound an even better place to live. Unlike my opponent, I would be a little embarrassed to be still talking about some of the issues at the end of my term. My initiatives of open space, multi-generational values, working with our neighbors are lofty goals, but they're big ideas that will move our town forward so we can prosper, so our town can grow and prosper here in southern Denton County. If you'd like more information about me and my ideas on my ideas for Flower Mound, please go to my campaign Facebook page, Johnson for Flower Mound Town Council. There are a series of informative videos there that take you on site so you can see the details of these issues and concerns. But most of all, please keep all this in mind when you go to the bottom of the ballot and vote for Dave Johnson for Place 2 for Flower Mound Town Council. And since I think I still have another minute or two, I have never voted against a sewer in the Cross Timbers. I'm not quite sure where you're getting some of your facts from. Besides, you should know after being on town council for 2 years, there is no capacity for sewer in the Cross Timbers. The main line out there doesn't have the capacity. Plus the fact, why are we still talking about sewers in 2020? That area feeds into Grapevine Lake, which is a main drinking water reservoir for the city of Dallas. Why would we want to expose that drinking reservoir to contamination from septic systems?
Thank you. All right, thank you to our Flower Mound Town Council and County Commissioner candidates. Please give them a round of applause. A reminder that tonight's forum is being recorded by the town of Flower Mound, and you can watch it on demand. You can watch it on FM TV. They'll show it over and over again up to Election Day. You also can watch it on demand at flower-mound.com and crosstimbersgazette.com. Early voting starts on Monday, so get there early. And it ends on Friday, October 30th. On Election Day, November 3rd, the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Please visit the Cross Timbers Gazette website at www.crosstimbersgazette.com, on Facebook and Twitter for the latest Southern Denton County news updates every single day. Local lives here at the Cross Timbers Gazette. That concludes our program. Thank you all tonight for coming out, and thank you for watching this event on TV as well. Have a great night.
Thank you, Max.